Joel Embiid has officially been shut down for the season, but the fallout of the situation is just now beginning. Leading up to the Philadelphia 76ers matchup with the Golden State Warriors on national television, ESPN's Charania has some interesting thoughts on the status that led to Joel Embiid's shutdown and why, for the first time all season, I'm saying right here that I think it's more likely than not that Daryl Morey is not back with the Sixers franchise. Going to dive into exactly what was said by Shams as well as why I think this is pretty notable here. But before I dive fully into it, do want to remind you guys to make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. That at this point in time, 71.6% of you guys have not subscribed to the channel just yet. If you like what we're doing here on Sixers Digest, need as many people a part of the Sixers Digest family as possible. It is tough times out here in the Sixers world, and we can get through it together. Now, to get into the topic of today, do want to start off with the initial screen grab to kind of set the stage here. Shout out to my guy Sixers Justin, who tweets out this quote from Shams Charania saying, quote, Joel Embiid went directly to 76ers owner on the state of his knee. And this is kind of interesting here to set the full stage for how this went down. That Shams Charania, obviously a part of ESPN now, is always hanging out there doing NBA Countdown, and they sort of go to him to chime in, fill in the gaps, and let everyone know what his sources are saying for every situation. Well, obviously they were talking about Joel Embiid being shut down for the season, and Shams had some interesting thoughts here. So to give the full transcription of this, and by the way, before I pull this up, we'll note that Shams did delete the tweets, both the article that he wrote on this and the clip of him on NBA Countdown. I don't really know what to make of that fully. Going to give that some more thought, but I did think that was interesting to note before as I was kind of getting prepared to this and pulling this up. But regardless, Bleacher Report did transcribe what he did say on TV, and it says, Joel Embiid approached Philadelphia 76ers owner Josh Harris regarding concerns with the health of his left knee, according to ESPN Shams Charania. Quote, I'm told Joel Embiid went directly to 76ers Josh Harris about the state of his knee and about where the realization he's at with what's the best interest of the organization as far as a potential shutdown, Charania said during a Saturday appearance on NBA Countdown. So this is pretty unique in this situation. And why that exactly is there's varying degrees of owners. There's obviously the Matt Ishbias of the world out there in Phoenix who are very involved. The Jerry Jones of the world down there with the Dallas Cowboys who are very have your hand in the middle. For Josh Harris specifically, and I understand he takes quite a bit of heat because of this, he is a hands-off owner, that he owns the Philadelphia 76ers, he owns the Washington Commanders, he owns the New Jersey Devils, that he looks at these as full-out business ventures, that these are things to pay his pockets, not to, be fired up, sit on the sideline. Now, granted, to his credit here, he's at Sixers game like quite often, sitting there courtside, way more than I think sometimes people give him credit for. That I don't think he's necessarily as evil as an owner as it's sometimes made out to be, but nonetheless, there are fair complaints to be had here. Now, with that all being said about him being a hands-off owner, that means he doesn't have to deal with this kind of stuff on a day-to-day basis. That his perspective is, I hire the best guys to make the decisions and get out of the way. Let them do it. That Daryl Morey can control things. The fact that there was this sort of conversation between Josh Harris, the man signing Joel Embiid's paychecks, and Joel Embiid himself means there's a little bit more to the story here. Now, we've heard this kind of rift going on behind the scenes all year, and I do think we'll get a little bit more clarity and fallout on what exactly that situation is in the coming weeks. That there is clearly a disagreement on what the proper treatment route is. Now, what has been reported to this point is essentially that the Sixers' perspective on Joel is that there is not a clear fix for his knee, that he's just going to have to get used to his quote-unquote new normal of what his knee is. Now, granted, that doesn't make things any easier for Joel Embiid, the human being here, that it's clear that he's in pain. Anybody that has watched him at all this season, that is not the Joel Embiid that we've come to know as a basketball player. The mobility, the way that he cuts, the way that he jumps, none of it is just the same guy. So it's clear to me that something is not right. And I think Joel, in his heart, can feel that he obviously understands he's not the 100% version of himself. Now, does it mean, is there a possibility that there is no finding that 100% version? Once again, that's a possibility, but it isn't one that they should commit to right now. I kind of more lean towards Joel Embiid's conversation or perspective on things, particularly as the season has continued to get unfolded and go more and more off the rails, that all focus should be on finding a better alternative than just play through this and hope it gets better. And that is why I think this conversation was had. But why I do think that is noteworthy is maybe the seat feels a little bit warmer under Daryl Morey now that this report has come out. And there has been quite a bit of buzz connecting these Sixers directly to Bob Myers as recently as today, as we have another article from Scoop B who writes, sources, 76ers leading the charge to bring Bob Myers to Philadelphia. And his first paragraph here saying, Bob Myers is a name that holds weight in NBA circles. The architect behind the Golden State Warriors dynasty, the former GM helped deliver 4 championships to the Bay Area and built a culture that turned the Warriors into a powerhouse. Now, league sources say the Philadelphia 76ers are in the driver's seat to bring Myers into their front office. Now, why I think this is particularly interesting is Bob Myers himself is a part of this NBA Countdown show, that he has to hear these exact conversations about whatever is going on behind the scenes in the Sixers organization and just kind of listen to that. Now, as far as the Bob Myers conversation, we can get deeper into that as we get closer. I'll just say right now, I think he's a little overrated. That I don't think he, like, labeling him the architect of the Golden State Warriors dynasty when he inherited Steph Curry. Like, Steph Curry was there when he took the job. It's not like you drafted this guy. And sure, he did a good job. He brought in Kevin Durant. He made proper moves. Andre Iguodala played some terrific basketball. There were things that he did very well. He did his job just fine. Don't get me wrong. My point being here is, things get a lot easier when that's your starting point. When your starting point is the greatest shooter of all time, you're going to end up with some pretty solid, success there. Now, granted, he probably put together the best basketball team of all time, that 73-9 Warriors. Nonetheless, I'm not going to get into this Bob Myers versus Daryl Morey conversation. What I do think is the takeaway here is that it is not all sunshine and roses behind the scenes in the Sixers organization. And I do think for Daryl Morey specifically, if this is how this went down, that you're hearing from your boss that we're shutting Joel Embiid down for the season when that's your decision to make based on the context of how things are set up, that is a problem there. There are some issues behind the scenes, and I do think that there is going to be some more difficult conversations between those two directly if that is the case there. Now, to add to this a little bit, Shams continued on in his report and sort of hinted at the exact same things. And this coming from our guy, Philly Sixers Galaxy, who tweets out, Joel Embiid and the Sixers experienced, quote, fundamental differences over the past month about how to treat Embiid's swelling left knee, Shams Charania said on NBA Countdown. Quote, this all came to head over the last couple of weeks, specifically when I'm told Joel Embiid went directly to 76ers owner Josh Harris about the state of his knee. Embiid believed he needed a different treatment approach for this versus the 76ers feeling you play on it, get in better condition, and you continue on this year. Now, for what it's worth, I do think there should be like a deep dive into the Sixers medical staff and how they're making decisions, I guess. Even in last night's broadcast, it was reported that Tyrese Maxey, who quite clearly is not looking like himself, but there is no doubt that man is not healthy based on how he's playing on the floor. I've never seen him so disinterested in passing up open three-point looks, having shot opportunities, and just kind of deferring there. That is not Tyrese Maxey, man. And what they said on the broadcast is that he can't grip the ball with 5 fingers, so he's taught himself this 3-finger shooting form here that they worked on all week at practice. If that is the case, if you have 2 non-functioning fingers on your hand that can't help you shoot a basketball, just get him off the court, man. And particularly a guy like Tyrese Maxey, who's 24 years old, who has a bright future ahead of him. What are we doing potentially having him lean into these bad habits? That this just brings things. You can't just mess with the guy's form and all of a sudden you flip the switch and he's back to normal. These are going to be things that there's lingering effects for, and I just don't see any sort of the positive when there's 17 games below 500. Now, granted, was last night a disastrous win? That could be the game all season that we look back on and said, man, that one cost us a top 6 draft pick. That's certainly a possibility there. Now, granted, it's out of our control with the ping pong balls at this point. I get they're not going to go 0-20 whatever from here on out. They're going to have some wins, but the point being here, like, I don't understand the logic in this continue to just go for it, and whatever happens, play the corpses of whatever bodies can sort of go out in there and play. And shout out to Maxey for competing and playing through it, but I do question the logic that does go through that entire discussion and really come into that decision there. Now, to kind of highlight one other thing here, I did want to pull up what's particularly interesting to me, which is the Sixers statement when they did initially shut Joel Embiid down. And what that says exactly, this coming from the official team accounts here, saying, the Philadelphia 76ers and Joel Embiid have been consulting with top specialists regarding ongoing issues with his left knee. After further evaluation, it is determined that he is medically unable to play and will miss the remainder of the season to focus on treatment and rehabilitation. We are working with medical experts to determine the exact treatment plan and will update media when we have more information. The team and specialists will continue working with Joel to ensure the best path forward for his long-term health and performance. I mean, pretty common sense stuff here, but it does bring more questions than answers in this entire situation. There's nothing I can imagine or believe to be the case that drastically changed in Joel's knee this week that led to this. These are things that he's been dealing with for quite some time. And I'm not going to dive into like what the whole issues within the medical staff are. Those are internal things that the Sixers organization absolutely should be doing. But the fact that it's taken Joel Embiid to like basically have to grab somebody by the shirt and scream that he's hurt right now for them to take him seriously is embarrassing as an organization, man. And for Daryl Morey, it does feel like it is setting up for him to be the fall guy. That, like, when a season goes off the rails the way this Sixers season has. Now, granted, we will see what happens from here, that there's still 20 whatever games left, and if this team does make some sort of playoff push, I hope that's not the case. I'm all in on the draft pick. That's what I do think is the best long-term direction for the franchise, but the point being here, things still are going to happen. But if they do completely miss the playoffs, after going all in, bringing in these 3 stars, Daryl Morey was the guy that brought in Paul George. Daryl Morey was the guy that signed Joel Embiid's extension here. Somebody has to catch the blame for it, and it does feel to me like it is trending towards Daryl Morey potentially being that guy. So we will see what happens until that point here. Still a lot of time until the offseason, and I think that decision would be made. It was just this time last offseason, which we were talking about Daryl Morey signing an extension with the Sixers franchise. So a lot of money behind the scenes being moved around here. But some interesting thoughts coming out of NBA Countdown. The point being, the bottom line for all of this is whatever is the right call for the future of Joel Embiid is one that the franchise should be making. If there's a broken relationship between Daryl Morey and Joel, I still think you lean in Joel's direction for that. And Daryl, I think, has done a better job than he sometimes gets credit. Look at the draft picks that he made. Look at some of the creative stuff at the bottom of the cap sheet. Some of these two-way guys, some of these low-end, the Quentin Grimes moves, things like that. I think Daryl's been better than he sometimes gets ultimately credit for. But the point being is there could be some deeper issues behind the scenes that we're just starting to get wind of here. So let me know what you guys think of that in the comments. Do you think it is the end of the Daryl Morey era? And I'm sure plenty of you would be thrilled if that is the case there. So drop those thoughts below. As always, doing remind you guys, make sure you are smashing that subscribe button. Once again, just 28.4% of you guys watching these videos have subscribed thus far. So make sure you're hitting button, dropping a like on this video too. I'll be back talking with you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.